My mom stole my college fund and sent me my stepsister's bills. But when she tried to use me again, I gave her a lesson she never expected. I'm a 24-year-old woman from the Midwest, and this is something I've been carrying for years now. Honestly, I've never told anyone the full story, not even my best friends. But lately, I've been thinking about everything that happened, and I need to get it off my chest. It all started when I was 18, fresh out of high school and ready to start my life, or at least I thought I was. Growing up, it was just me and my mom for as long as I can remember. My dad was never in the picture, and my mom worked hard to keep things together. We didn't have a lot, but we got by. I respected her for how hard she worked, even if we didn't always get along. She could be strict and sometimes distant, but I figured it was just because she was tired from working so much. Things started to change when I was 16. That's when she met Rick. He seemed fine at first. Polite, friendly, and a little too smooth if I'm being honest. He had 2 kids, Julia, who was 14, and Max, who was 12. They all moved in about 6 months after Mom and Rick started dating, and within a year they got married. That's when everything started to shift. Suddenly, it felt like I didn't exist anymore. Mom started bending over backward for Rick and his kids, buying them new clothes, taking them to amusement parks, and even letting Julia redecorate her room with all new furniture. Meanwhile, I was still wearing clothes I'd outgrown and using a desk we'd picked up at a yard sale when I was 12. It wasn't just the money or the attention. It was the way she constantly made it clear that Rick and his kids were the priority. For example, when Julia turned 16, Mom threw her a huge Sweet 16 party. I'm talking catered food, a DJ, a fancy cake, and a princess for the day vibe that I didn't even know we could afford. Rick invited half the town, and Julia ended the night with a brand new car. For comparison, on my 16th birthday, Mom made me a boxed cake, and we had dinner at home. No party, no car, not even a thoughtful gift. She got me a set of towels because, and I quote, "You'll need them when you move out one day." It wasn't like we were rolling in money back then either, but somehow, Rick's kids always got the red carpet treatment. And then there was Max. When he got into basketball, Mom signed him up for every camp, bought him custom shoes, and even drove him 2 hours each way to some weekend league. I, on the other hand, had begged her for years to let me take piano lessons. She always said no, claiming we couldn't afford it. It wasn't just favoritism, it was like I was a second-class citizen in my own home. Every decision Mom made revolved around Rick and his kids, and if I needed something, it was always maybe next time or we'll figure it out later. What hurt the most was when Rick and Mom sat me down one day and told me that they were turning my bedroom into Julia's study space because she needed a quiet place to focus on her studies. I had to move into the tiny guest room at the back of the house, which barely fit my bed and a dresser. Julia wasn't even using the study space half the time. I'd catch her in there taking selfies and making TikToks. But the worst of it came after I graduated from high school. I had been working 2 part-time jobs for over a year, saving every penny I could for college. By the time I graduated, I'd saved up $6,500. It wasn't much, but it was enough to cover my first year of community college and still have a little left over for books and supplies. I was proud of myself. One day, a few weeks before I was supposed to start classes, I logged into my bank account to check my balance. That's when I noticed something was wrong. My account was completely empty. Every single dollar was gone. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe there was a glitch, or someone had hacked my account. I called the bank in a panic, trying to figure out what happened. That's when they told me the money had been withdrawn by someone with access to the account. My stomach dropped. The only other person on the account was my mom. I confronted her that same day. I remember walking into the living room, shaking, and asking her if she'd taken my money. She didn't even look surprised. She just nodded and said, "Yes, I used it," like it was no big deal. I asked her why, and she said Rick needed help paying for some things for the kids. They're starting school too, you know. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She took every dollar I had saved for college to pay for clothes and school supplies for Julia and Max. I was furious. I told her that money was for my future, and she just shrugged and said, "You're part of this family. We all have to pitch in." That was the moment I realized she didn't see me as her daughter anymore, just as someone to be used when it was convenient. So, after the whole situation with my mom draining my college fund, I packed up and moved in with my cousin Sarah. Let me just say that was one of the hardest and best decisions I've ever made. I didn't have a backup plan or anything. I just knew I couldn't stay in that house anymore. Sarah has always been my safe space. She's 10 years older than me and lives about 30 minutes away in a small but cozy apartment. She didn't even hesitate when I called her in tears, explaining what happened. "Come here," she said. "Stay as long as you need. We'll figure it out." When I got there, I was a mess. I had one suitcase with most of my clothes and some random stuff I threw in at the last minute. That's it. Everything else, I left behind. I didn't even feel like it was mine anymore. I mean, what was the point? Sarah didn't pry or ask too many questions, which I appreciated. She just hugged me, handed me a blanket, and said, "Let's order pizza." Those first few days were rough. I felt lost, like I didn't know who I was anymore. My whole life, I thought I'd had a supportive mom, even if she wasn't perfect. But after what she did, I couldn't trust her. And let's be real, it's not just about the money. It's about what the money represented. That was my hard work, my future, my independence, and she took it like it was nothing. Sarah was a lifesaver during that time. She dragged me out of bed when I just wanted to lie there all day, telling me, "You're not going to let them win by giving up." She helped me make a list of things I needed to do, like finding another job and figuring out my next steps for school. For a while, I worked at a coffee shop near Sarah's apartment. It wasn't glamorous, but it was enough to start building my savings back up. Plus, it gave me something to do besides sit around feeling sorry for myself. I started to realize how much I'd been holding on to all that resentment and anger. And while I wasn't ready to forgive my mom, and probably never will be, I didn't want it to consume me either. One thing that really helped was setting small goals. At first, it was just about saving $500 so I could open a new bank account that mom didn't have access to. Then it was saving enough to pay for one class at the community college. Eventually, I was able to register as a part-time student and take my first couple of classes. It wasn't the traditional college experience I dreamed of, but it was something. Living with Sarah was a completely different vibe from living at home. For one thing, she actually treated me like an adult. She never made me feel guilty if I didn't have money to chip in for groceries or rent, and she always asked me what I wanted to do instead of just making decisions for me. We had this routine where we'd sit on the couch every Friday night, eat takeout, and watch whatever dumb reality show was on. It wasn't much, but it felt like home. Meanwhile, I barely heard from my mom. The few times she did call or text, it was never to check on me. It was more like, "I hope you're thinking about coming home soon," or "We need to talk about how you're going to contribute to the family." It was like she didn't even realize I'd left because of her. I didn't respond to most of her messages. What was I supposed to say? Thanks for ruining my life? I did hear bits and pieces about what was going on at home from my Uncle Dave, who I'm still pretty close with. He told me Rick was still pulling his weight as king of the couch, while mom worked overtime to pay for everything. At one point, Julia had joined some expensive cheerleading team, and Max was getting private guitar lessons. "Oh, and your mom got Julia a new iPhone for her birthday," Dave added during one of our phone calls. "Of course she did," I said, rolling my eyes so hard I think I pulled a muscle. But honestly, I stopped caring. They had their perfect little family, and I had my own life to figure out. By the time I turned 20, things were starting to look up. I'd saved enough to transfer to a university about an hour away and move into a shared apartment with a couple of other students. I was finally able to breathe and start focusing on my future. One of the most surprising things about leaving home was how much my mental health improved. I hadn't even realized how much stress I'd been carrying until I wasn't living under the same roof as Rick and his entitled kids. By the time I graduated, I'd managed to land a decent job in marketing. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my life together. I was paying my own bills, living in a cute little studio apartment, and finally starting to see a future for myself that didn't include constantly looking over my shoulder for my mom's approval. Then, out of nowhere, my mom decided to reappear. It started with a text, "Hey, we need to talk. Call me when you have a second." I didn't want to. I mean, the last time I had any meaningful interaction with her, she emptied my bank account and left me to fend for myself. Why would I want to voluntarily open that door again? Then she called me, and I picked up, hesitant. Big mistake. The second I picked up, she went straight into her pitch. "Julia is starting college," she said, like that was supposed to mean something. "She's decided dorm life isn't for her. It's too noisy, and she needs her own space to focus on her studies." I already knew where this was going, but I let her keep talking. "So, we've been looking at apartments for her near campus," she continued. "We found a really nice one-bedroom. It's only $1,500 a month, really affordable for the area." That's when she dropped the bomb. "I was hoping you could help with the rent. You're doing well now, right?" I almost laughed. "You're asking me to pay $1,500 a month for Julia's apartment? Are you serious?" She sighed, like I was the unreasonable one. "Not the whole thing, just part of it. Maybe $1,000 a month." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, Julia isn't my responsibility. She's not even my sister. She's your stepdaughter." "She's family," Mom shot back, her tone sharp. "You don't just turn your back on family." I wanted to scream. This was the same woman who literally turned her back on me the second Rick and his kids entered the picture, and now she was lecturing me about family? "Why can't Rick help with this?" I asked. Or Julia, for that matter. She could get a part-time job like everyone else. Mom got defensive. "Rick's doing everything he can," she said, "and Julia needs to focus on her studies. A job would distract her." "Right," I said. my voice dripping with sarcasm, because no college student in the history of ever has managed to juggle school and a part-time job. She ignored that. It's not like we're asking you to pay forever, she said, just until we get things figured out. I'd heard that line before, back when she drained my college fund. She said it was just to get through a rough patch. That rough patch turned into years of me being ignored while Rick and his kids got everything handed to them on a silver platter. No, I said firmly, I'm not doing it. Mom wasn't happy. She started going on about how ungrateful I was and how she'd done so much for me growing up. I could feel my blood boiling, but I kept my cool. You didn't do me a favor, Mom. You did your job as a parent. Big difference. That only made her angrier. She started rattling off all the times she'd sacrificed for me, buying me clothes, driving me to school, paying for food, basic parenting stuff. But she made it sound like she deserved a gold medal. I'm not arguing about this, I said finally. I'm not paying for Julia's apartment. End of story. Then I hung up. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Nope. This is my mom we're talking about, queen of guilt trips and manipulation. She wasn't about to take no for an answer. The first wave of her manipulation started with a pity parade. She began texting me nonstop about how hard things were for her. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, she'd write. The second wave came when she started pulling other people into the mess. First, it was my Uncle Dave. He called me one evening. Hey, he said, his tone way too casual. Your mom's been pretty upset lately. She said you're refusing to help with Julia's apartment. I sighed, already annoyed. Yeah, because it's not my responsibility, Dave. Well, she's really struggling right now, he said. Maybe you could help out, just until they get on their feet. I almost laughed.
Dave, they've been getting on their feet for the last 7 years. When is that supposed to actually happen?
He didn't have an answer to that, of course. Instead, he tried the old family sticks together argument. I get it, you're mad about what happened before, he said, but she's still your mom. Don't you think you're being a little harsh? Harsh? I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. Dave, she drained my college fund and treated me like an afterthought for years. Now she wants me to clean up her mess? No, I'm not doing it. To his credit, Dave didn't push too hard after that. He kind of mumbled something about how he didn't want to get in the middle of it and hung up. But still, it was frustrating to see how easily she roped him into her campaign. Then came the real surprise, Julia herself. I hadn't spoken to her in years, so when her name popped up on my phone, I almost didn't recognize it. Her text was short but packed with entitlement. Hey, I heard you're not helping with my apartment. Not sure why you're being so difficult about this, but it's not that much money for you. It's literally just rent. Just rent. Like $1,500 a month was pocket change to me. I didn't respond. What was the point? Julia had always been the little princess, and clearly that hadn't changed. After that, my mom cranked up the guilt to max level. She sent me this long, dramatic text about how I was tearing the family apart and putting Julia's future in jeopardy. She even threw in some weird line about how my refusal to help was proof that I never cared about them. I wanted to scream. How was any of this my fault? She was the one who prioritized Rick and his kids over me. But now that her golden child needed something, suddenly I was the bad guy. The worst part was how much it got to me, even though I knew I wasn't in the wrong. The guilt started creeping in. What if I was being too harsh? What if helping out just this once wouldn't be such a big deal? I talked to Sarah about it, and she immediately shut that down. Don't you dare cave, she said. They've taken enough from you already. This isn't about Julia's future, it's about control. Your mom doesn't like that you're independent now, so she's trying to pull you back in. She was right, but it was still hard to shake the guilt. That's the thing about family. They know exactly how to push your buttons. My mom had spent years conditioning me to feel responsible for her problems, and even now, I still caught myself falling into that trap. The final straw came about a week later. Mom left me a voicemail that was straight-up emotional blackmail. It was classic manipulation, playing the victim, twisting the narrative and trying to make me feel like the bad guy. And for a minute, it almost worked. I sat there listening to that voicemail, feeling this awful mix of anger and sadness. I called Sarah and told her about the voicemail. What should I do? I asked. Block her, Sarah said without hesitation. If she's not going to respect your boundaries, then you need to protect yourself. So that's exactly what I did. I blocked her number, her emails, and even her social media accounts. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my own life. Of course, I knew this wasn't over. My mom wasn't the type to give up easily, and I had a feeling she still had a few tricks up her sleeve. But for now, I was done. Thanks for reading, Reddit. I'll update you on what happened next, but trust me, it only gets messier from here. Update 1. Hey Reddit, I'm back with an update. If you've been following along, you already know my mom wasn't taking no for an answer when it came to Julia's apartment. But what I didn't expect was for Rick to jump into the mix. Honestly, I hadn't thought about him much since I moved out years ago. He was more like a background annoyance, the kind of guy who always talked a big game but never actually followed through on anything. So when he decided to get involved, I should have seen the storm coming. It started with a random phone call. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway because, let's face it, I wasn't thinking straight that day. As soon as I said hello, I heard his voice. "Hey there," Rick said, like we were old friends. My stomach turned. I hadn't spoken to him since I left home. "What do you want?" I asked, skipping the pleasantries. He didn't waste time. "Your mom tells me you're refusing to help with Julia's apartment," he said. His tone was calm, but there was this edge to it, like he was trying to sound intimidating. "That's right," I said, keeping my voice steady. Rick let out this fake laugh, the kind that says, "You're going to regret this." "I don't think you understand the situation," he said. "Oh, I understand perfectly," I snapped. "You want me to fund a whole apartment for Julia because she's too special to live in a dorm. That's not happening." And that's when he dropped the act. "Let me make this clear," he said. "Your mom is under enough stress as it is. If you don't step up and do your part, you're going to push her to her breaking point. Is that what you want?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "My part? Are you serious? I'm not the one who promised Julia a lifestyle I can't afford. That's on you and Mom." Rick wasn't having it. "This isn't about promises," he said. "It's about family. You're part of this family, whether you like it or not." I almost laughed. "Rick, you and I both know you've never thought of me as family. I was just the extra baggage that came with Mom. So don't sit there and lecture me about family." That must have hit a nerve because his tone got even colder. "You've always been ungrateful," he said. "We took you in when your mom was barely scraping by, and this is how you repay us?" "That was it," I snapped. "Took me in? Are you kidding me? That was my house before you ever showed up. You waltzed in with your kids and acted like you owned the place." "I didn't need you, Rick. I needed a mom who actually cared about me." There was a long pause on his end, and for a second I thought maybe I'd shut him up, but of course he wasn't done. "Look," he said, his voice low and calculated. "You can play the victim all you want, but here's the reality. If Julia doesn't get that apartment, things are going to fall apart around here. Your mom can't handle the stress, and I'm not going to sit here and watch her crumble because of you." I froze. The way he said it, so matter-of-fact, like it was my responsibility to hold their lives together, like I had the power to fix everything with one quick Venmo. It was so ridiculous that I almost wanted to laugh. "Let me ask you something, Rick," I said. "Why don't you pay for the apartment? Or better yet, why doesn't Julia get a job? I worked my butt off to save for college, and you guys stole that from me. Why should I sacrifice even more for her?" Rick didn't answer my question. Instead, he doubled down. "This isn't about money," he said, which was hilarious considering that's all he ever seemed to talk about. "It's about priorities. Julia's education is at stake here. Do you really want to be the reason she fails?" I couldn't take it anymore. "You know what, Rick? You're right. This isn't about money. It's about the fact that you've spent years mooching off my mom and pretending you're the head of the family. Newsflash, you're not. You're just a deadbeat who can't even provide for his own kids." That shut him up for a second, but not for long. "You've got a lot of nerve talking to me like that," he said, his voice dripping with fake authority. "And you've got a lot of nerve asking me to pay for something that has nothing to do with me," I shot back, "so we're even." Rick must have realized he wasn't getting anywhere with me, because he ended the call with one last attempt at guilt. "I hope you can live with yourself," he said, "because when this all blows up, it's going to be on you." Then he hung up. I sat there for a minute, letting his words sink in. I wasn't upset or shaken, I was just mad. Who did he think he was, calling me up and trying to bully me into paying for his kid's apartment? That was the thing about Rick. He didn't just take no for an answer. He schemed, manipulated, and bullied until he got what he wanted. And if he couldn't get it from me, I had no doubt he'd try to twist Mom's arm instead. But no matter what he did next, I wasn't going to let him pull me into their mess. I'd spent years cleaning up after their bad decisions, and I was done. Thanks for reading, Reddit. I'll update you soon with what happened next, but let's just say this was far from over. Update 2:10. Hey Reddit, back again. I really thought I'd seen the worst of it after Rick called me, trying to guilt and intimidate me into paying for Julia's apartment. But I was wrong. What happened next made it clear just how much of a manipulative, self-serving jerk he really was. A couple of weeks after that phone call, I got a message from my Uncle Dave. Now, Dave isn't the kind of guy who gets involved in drama. He's more of the keep the peace, stay out of it type. So when he texted me saying, "Hey, can we talk? It's about your mom," I knew something was up. When I called him, the first thing he said was, "Your mom's in a bad spot right now." I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "Let me guess," I said. "It's about Julia's apartment." "It's more complicated than that," Dave replied, which immediately made me nervous. Apparently, Rick had given my mom an ultimatum. Either she found a way to pay for Julia's apartment or he was done. He flat out told her he'd leave her if she didn't come up with the money. Hearing this, I wasn't even surprised. If there was one thing Rick was good at, it was taking advantage of people, and my mom was no exception. He'd been mooching off her for years, barely working while she busted her butt to keep the household afloat. Now he was threatening to walk away unless she caved to his demands. Does she seriously think he's going to stick around after this? I asked. I don't know, he said. She's convinced she can't lose him, though. She's been scrambling to figure out how to make it work. I was furious, not just at Rick for being the manipulative leech he'd always been, but at my mom for letting it get this far. She had been bending over backward for this guy and his kids for years, and now he was pulling this. A few days later, I got a call from Sarah. Apparently, Mom had called her, desperate for help. She didn't ask Sarah for money. She knew that was a dead end. Instead, she tried to use Sarah to get to me. She kept saying how important it is to keep the family together, Sarah told me, and how you'll regret it if you don't help out. I let out a bitter laugh. Typical, I said. She's still trying to guilt me into cleaning up Rick's mess. She sounded pretty bad, though, Sarah added, like she's really stressed about this. I didn't feel bad for her, not anymore. She had chosen Rick over me years ago, and now she was dealing with the consequences. But still, a part of me was curious. I wanted to know just how far Rick was willing to take this. So, against my better judgment, I decided to call my mom. When she picked up, she sounded exhausted. I was wondering if you'd call, she said. Dave told me what's going on, I said bluntly. Is it true? Is Rick really threatening to leave you over this apartment? She hesitated, and I could tell she didn't want to admit it. He's just frustrated, she said finally. It's been a lot of pressure for him. Pressure? I said, my voice rising. Mom, he hasn't worked in years. You're the one paying for everything. How is this pressure for him? He's doing his best, she said weakly. No, he's not, I shot back. He's using you, Mom, and now he's holding your relationship hostage to get what he wants. That seemed to hit a nerve because she got defensive. You don't understand, she said. Rick loves me. He's just trying to do what's best for Julia. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. If he loved you, he wouldn't treat you like this, I said. He wouldn't make you choose between him and your financial stability. This isn't love, Mom. It's manipulation. She didn't respond to that, and after a few seconds of silence, she said, I just need to figure this out. I thought you'd want to help, but I guess I was wrong. I hung up after that. There was nothing more to say. Over the next week, I heard bits and pieces about what was going on through Dave. Mom had started dipping into her retirement savings to cover the cost of the apartment. She was so desperate to keep Rick around that she was willing to jeopardize her future for him. And Rick? He was living his best life. Dave mentioned seeing him at a local bar, laughing and drinking like he didn't have a care in the world. Meanwhile, my mom was working overtime and stressing herself out trying to make him happy. The final blow came when Dave called me again, sounding almost giddy. You're not going to believe this, he said. Try me, I replied. Rick left her, he said. Apparently, Rick had packed up and walked out a few days earlier. Not only that, but he took half of what little savings my mom had left. He even took her car, claiming it was technically his since she had signed it over to him years ago. I didn't feel bad for her. She had let this man walk all over her for years, and now she was paying the price. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel a little sad, not for her, but for the person she used to be, the mom who worked hard to give me a good life before Rick came into the picture. I haven't spoken to her since. Part of me wonders if she's going to reach out and try to apologize, but honestly, I don't think I'd be able to forgive her even if she did. Anyway, that's where things are right now. Thanks for reading, Reddit. I'll update you if anything else happens, but for now, I'm just glad Rick is finally out of the picture. Shoo, update 3, and it's been a while since I last posted, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I was going to write again. But I noticed some of you called me out for leaving things on a bit of a cliffhanger, so I thought I'd give an update and close the loop on everything. First off, thank you to everyone who reached out or commented with advice and support. It's wild how many people could relate to what I went through, and it's been comforting to know I'm not alone in this. I've read every comment and message, and they've meant more to me than I can say. So, here's where things stand now. After Rick walked out and left my mom in financial and emotional ruins, she finally reached out to me. I was honestly shocked when she texted me one day from a new phone number. I hadn't heard from her in weeks, and part of me assumed she wouldn't bother trying to contact me again after everything. But there she was texting me like nothing had happened. Then she called. I didn't pick up. Instead, I let it go to voicemail. The message she left was different from her usual tone. She sounded tired, almost defeated. Hey, she started. I know I've made mistakes. I really need to talk to you. Please call me back. I sat there staring at my phone, debating whether to call her. On one hand, I was curious. Had she finally realized how toxic Rick was? On the other hand, I didn't want to open that door again. I'd worked so hard to set boundaries, and I didn't want to undo all of that. I decided to text her instead of calling. I figured it was safer, less emotional, and easier to control the conversation. I kept it short. What do you want to talk about? She replied almost immediately, can we meet in person? I want to apologize. That threw me for a loop. My mom apologizing? That was new. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. We chose a coffee shop halfway between us, neutral ground, no emotional baggage attached to the setting. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of everything had finally caught up to her. She waved me over to the table she'd claimed, and for a second, I felt that familiar pang of guilt. But I pushed it aside. Thanks for coming, she said as I sat down. I didn't respond right away. I just looked at her, waiting for her to say whatever it was she needed to say. I owe you an apology, she started, her voice shaky. For everything, for taking your money, for pushing you aside, for choosing Rick over you. I see now how wrong I was. I wish I could say her words gave me the closure I'd been craving, but they didn't, not completely. I think part of me had stopped hoping for an apology a long time ago, and hearing it now felt hollow. I'm sorry it took losing everything to realize that, she continued. Rick, he manipulated me. He made me believe I had to choose him and his kids to keep our family together. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now how much I hurt you. I nodded, still not saying much. I didn't want to let my guard down just because she was finally admitting what I'd known all along. I know I can't make up for what I've done, she said, but I want to try. I want to fix our relationship if you'll let me. That's when I finally spoke. Mom, I'm glad you're realizing this now, but you have to understand that it's not that simple. You hurt me, and it's going to take a lot more than an apology to fix that. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I understand, she said quietly. Why now? I asked. Why are you coming to me now, after everything? She sighed. Because I don't have anyone else. Rick's gone. Julia and Max don't talk to me, and I realized I pushed away the one person who actually cared about me. Her words hit me hard, harder than I expected. I wasn't sure if she meant them, or if this was just another attempt to guilt me, but either way, they left me feeling conflicted. I can't do this right now, I said finally. I need time to think about where we go from here. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I understand, she said. Take all the time you need. After that, we said our goodbyes, and I left the coffee shop feeling more drained than I had in years. That was a few weeks ago, and I haven't spoken to her since. She sent me a couple of texts, mostly just updates about how she's doing and the occasional I miss you message, but I haven't replied. I think part of me is still processing it. It's hard to reconcile the mom I used to know with the person she became. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully trust her again, but I do know one thing. I'm not going to let her back into my life just because she's suddenly ready to make amends. Forgiveness is complicated, and it doesn't come easy. Right now, I'm focusing on myself and the life I've built without her. Maybe one day we'll have a relationship again, but for now, I'm keeping my distance.